If you've been grinding arpeggios and scales for months or even years, and your solos still sound mechanical and lifeless, you are not alone. The traditional approach that most jazz educators teach, memorizing your scales and running arpeggios up and down the fretboard, is keeping you trapped in a box instead of setting your solos free. Don't believe me? Let me play you this 2-5-1 line from Charlie Parker. Now, he's known as the father of bebop and basically the inventor of modern jazz improvisation. Here's what's so incredible. That line sounds so fluid and works great over these changes, but it doesn't follow the traditional scale arpeggio approach. So let's think about that for a second. If the guy who is literally known as the greatest improviser to have ever lived is not using that approach, why are we still trying to learn how to solo in that way? By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what Charlie Parker was doing and thinking while going through this line. And it's going to completely change the way you approach improvising in jazz. I'm going to break down this line note for note, but also the concept that Charlie Parker is using here that allows him to play in this way instead of the scale approach. And then I'll take a section of that so that you guys can immediately apply it to your own playing and have something actionable to practice and implement immediately. So if you're ready to finally break free from this scale prison and improvise how these masters actually did, let's dive in. Okay, so the traditional way of analyzing a line like this would be to see how are the notes being played fitting over the scales or the key of the harmony that they're being played over. And this really is not the way that these master improvisers are playing or thinking. And this line, I think, really demonstrates that. Because if we look at it, we don't actually have any sort of distinguishable scale that's being used here. There's so many accidentals through this idea. We have a lot of wrong notes for the scale and the harmony, right? We're in the key of B flat, C minor, F7, yet we have E naturals and G sharps, notes that aren't in our scale. And we don't even really have arpeggios. So how do we analyze what's going on here? The other thing that we get taught a lot is that, especially on a 2-5, we need the thirds to go to our sevenths. But when we look at this line, there's no thirds going to sevenths, especially between the 2 chord to the 5 or the 5 chord to the 1 chord. In fact, we have notes we would never expect to hear. So just from that, we should understand that if that's how we were thinking of things, we are really not understanding what's actually being done when these guys improvise. And hopefully that just gets you curious about how to improvise in this new way. So what is this concept that Charlie Parker is doing if he's not using scales or arpeggios or thinking about it like that? What he's doing is just utilizing a tension resolution principle, meaning we create tension and we resolve that tension, right? And this is the same way it works in many different fields of art, right? We have tension and resolution in a novel, and we can do that and create a more story-like solo by utilizing that principle here. And it actually works even better than scales. So let me play through this and let's hear where we have that tension and resolution, just looking at the notes from B flat major. So B flat, D, and F. We're gonna sort of be a detective trying to find those notes within this line. So that's all tension. But then we resolve on this B flat, continuing tension. We have our root again, root of B flat. More tension. Resolution, and then more tension. Resolution. And notice we really don't even get the third of the B flat until this last end of the line. So the F natural and the D are notes we were missing until we get it at the end. It's one other really important technique here is not overdoing the resolution because it can start to sound really bland. And that's actually a major problem with the scale approach that you're probably doing right now, is you have way too much resolution. All of the notes in the scale fit the notes in the chord you're playing over. So you're not really creating any tension, and that's why your solo sounds sort of lifeless. Okay, so this is really begging the question, how do you actually learn to play like this if you're not a genius like Charlie Parker? I want to recommend to you guys to learn the shapes of this improvisation, what I call essential jazz patterns. And so we'll break down what he's doing in this line into these bigger shapes so we can take one of them, practice it, and then I'll show you guys how to actually use it and implement it right now. So there's three main shapes happening here, and Charlie Parker has his own versions of these essential jazz patterns that are his take on patterns that get used by all of the jazz masters across decades, across instruments, etc. And so this first one is a type of chromatic enclosure to get us to that resolution point of B flat. So think about the enclosure as just tension to get us to a resolution. Another essential jazz pattern that he's using here is what I call continuous chromaticism. It's literally just either ascending or descending chromatically until you get to another point where you link in another essential jazz pattern. Right, so that's just all creating tension that we need to be able to resolve. If you don't resolve this in an effective way, then the chromaticism will not sound good. But as long as you actually connect to another essential jazz pattern, this will sound great. And so what does he do to connect that? He's connecting to another chromatic enclosure. And this is like a very common 4-note pattern I've talked about in a bunch of other videos. It can come from diminished or melodic minor. He's adding in a little chromaticism within there as well. Again, Charlie Parker's just kind of genius variations on these standard ideas. And then lastly, he's using a pivot arpeggio, and this is one I call a Parker pivot, because instead of doing a normal pivot arpeggio, he connects within that another enclosure. So we have a lot of different essential jazz patterns getting connected here, right? And so if you're going to try and learn this line, if people go so much on the other side, I'm not going to do scales, I'm just going to learn lines, this can be just as difficult because you're learning lines that have so many of these patterns built together, and you're not really learning necessarily how to connect them. What are the units being linked up here? So let's just look at one of them, and then I'll show you how we can start to link it into other ideas. And remember here, the secret is not in what he's playing, it's in where he is going. This is a big unlock for a lot of people, which I'm going to show you right now with this Parker chromatic enclosure. So when Charlie Parker is doing this, let's break down just the basic format of this idea. It's just this. What I want you guys to think about is, first of all, on guitar, we're just doing this all on one string, which makes it really easy to visualize. We are starting one half step or one fret above the note we want to resolve to. So I want to resolve to this note. That's like my target note, my resolution note, same thing. I play all of that. And then I resolve. So as long as that last note is a note that works on the chord you're going to, this could be a chord tone, chord tones will work, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a ninth, could be an 11th on a minor chord. There's a lot of options. It just should sound like a resolution point to your ears. Then you can implement this chromatic enclosure to get to that resolution point. So let's practice this in a few spots. And one really great place to do this, especially as guitarists, is in this G minor pentatonic position, or B flat major pentatonic. And we do that there because these notes across this string can all be resolution points for this idea. So let me show you what I mean. If we're going to B flat, I could start on this A flat, and then I'm resolving to the G. And from there we would go to other ideas, arpeggios, different patterns, 1, 2, 3 patterns, etc., triads. So we do it there. Let's do it here. So look how it's just the shift up of a fret. I end on the C. I do it here. Now I'm ending on F. Or on B flat. or on A. And this kind of pattern even links with itself. Right? So as you start to get these essential jazz patterns in your fingers, you can start to connect them with each other. But you have to learn these in a way where you're understanding the fundamental units of improvisation, essential jazz patterns. I have an entire course on this inside Chase's Guitar Academy. It's brand new. It's part of my Master Improvisation Blueprint, which is teaching you the 9 essential jazz patterns and then how to connect those with each other to form essential jazz vocab. What I did is I analyzed hundreds of transcriptions from a bunch of masters on guitar: Joe Pass, Pat Martino, George Benson, Wes Montgomery, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Clifford Brown, Dexter Gordon, a lot of masters, and found areas in their solo where they are connecting from one essential jazz pattern to another and then form that into essential jazz vocab. And this is very, very fundamental. It's not like it was difficult to find them using essential jazz patterns. What was difficult was finding the exact ones I needed to show those connections. And you really can connect any essential jazz pattern with any other one if you do it in the right way. So if you guys want to check that out, link in the description. You get a 7-day free trial of Chase's Guitar Academy, and you can learn the 9 essential jazz patterns right now. You'll get instant access. If you want to practice this concept further, also inside Chase's Guitar Academy, I have 3 2-5-1 lines that use the concept we just did of the Parker chromatic enclosure, so you can practice those as well. Thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video.